And Minister, thank you for taking this question. Unfortunately, it isn't Minister Moran here himself, but Arklow, like a number of towns in County Wicklow, is susceptible to serious flooding, and there have been some very serious flooding events in Arklow over the recent years, both in terms of river flooding and coastal flooding. Now, thankfully, after a number of years, there is now talk of putting flood defence along the Avoca River. That's at design stage now. There was some limited flooding along the Avoca River at South Quay during Storm Ophelia. Now, thankfully, it wasn't of a serious nature. But there is another serious problem on North Beach in Arklow, and it's a historical issue, and it goes back over numerous years. And in 1989, after a very serious flood and storm event, thankfully flood protection measures were put in place, and they were completed in November 1990 at a cost of £2.2 million. Now, Minister, that was 27 years ago. Now, over those 27 years, North Beach has taken a battering, a hammering, it has to be said, and there's been serious damage caused to the flood protection measures at North Beach. Now, the work that was carried out there in 1990, that was supposed to be the first phase of a two-phase scheme. The second phase, Minister, never happened, and that would have protected the existing flood protection measures that are there, and they would have consisted of a number of sea grinds going out into the sea, and that would have created the replenishment of the beach area in front of the current flood protection measures. And that would have broke the waves away from the sea wall, taking the pressure and the power from the waves. That never happened, Minister. We have a situation now where the waves are crashing into the rock armour at North Beach on an ongoing basis. And as I said, serious damage has been caused to those measures. And Wicklow County Council only last year, February of last year, carried out a report on the condition of the flood protection measures at that area. And that was carried out by JP Byrne Consulting Engineers. And that was actually presented to Government along with a number of applications for funding, and I'll deal with that now in a moment. But the issues that were identified in that consultant engineer report make grave reading, Minister. They talk about the base of the flood protection works being weak areas developing in it. It talks about open areas of the rock armour that have been literally torn apart, have been opened up. The areas, again, completely undermined, extending for 50 metres in one section. Again, it talks about other areas that are completely undermined and weakened as a result of consecutive storms. Now, in Storm Ophelia on Monday, again, North Beach took a hammering. The waves not only bashing into the rock armour, but overtopping the rock armour as well. So a number of things have happened. The pedestrian walking along the top of the rock armour has essentially been washed away. There's a caravan park in the local area as well, and extensive damage was caused in that caravan park. So, unfortunately, a number of applications have come in to the department seeking funding, not just to carry out essential remedial repair work to the existing flood protection measures, but also to carry out the second phase that needs to happen, that unfortunately never happened, that would give effect to protecting the first phase of work. So, Minister, I ask for a response, and hopefully you'll have a positive response, because extensive work has gone in to this project by the engineer in Wicklow County Council, who has put in a number of applications. There's consultant reports come in. I did speak to Minister Moran on the issue yesterday. I outlined it briefly. I have to give him a more thorough report, and he has said he will come down to Arklow to have a look at it as well. So hopefully you'll have a more up-to-date report on it, Minister.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I'd like to thank Deputy Brady for raising this issue in relation to serious flooding at North Beach in Arklow and County Wicklow, and taking this topical issue on behalf of my colleague, Minister Kevin Boxer-Moran. I want to start by assuring all communities, whether those at risk from river flooding or those in coastal areas at risk from tidal and sea flooding, that the Government is fully committed to finding viable solutions to manage that risk. I understand from the local authority that there was wave overtopping and that the revetment or the retaining walls sustained some damage at this location during Storm Ophelia, but our understanding is that fortunately no flooding of properties occurred. Coastal erosion is a natural and ongoing process which takes place around the entire coastline of Ireland. Coastal erosion may threaten human life, infrastructure such as roads, and may undermine and cause damage to properties. The primary objective of government policy on coastal protection is to ensure that in areas identified as being at greatest risk of damage or loss of economic assets through coastal erosion or flooding, appropriate and sustainable measures are identified by local authorities to protect those assets, and where such measures are economically justified on cost-benefit grounds and compatible with all required environmental and other statutory requirements, they are implemented subject to the availability of resources. It is important to stress that it is a matter in the first instance for each local authority to identify, investigate and address priority areas of their coastlines considered to be under significant threat from erosion. The OPW operates the Minor Flood Mitigation Works and Coastal Protection Scheme, which was introduced on an administrative basis following the severe flooding in 2009, under which applications for funding from local authorities are considered for flood relief and coastal protection measures, costing up to $750,000 in each instance, and which meet a minimum benefit-cost ratio of 1.5 to 1. Under the scheme since 2009, over 6,000 properties have been protected from localised flooding in over 630 locations at a cost of €33 million, with funding of approximately €1.5 million approved for projects in County Wicklow. The management of problems of coastal protection in the area indicated by the Deputy is a matter for Wicklow County Council. This is primarily a localised matter, and as such it is for Wicklow County Council to identify an appropriate, sustainable and viable solution to the problems at North Beach. 3 applications have been submitted by Wicklow County Council under the Minor Flood Mitigation and Coastal Protection Schemes for works to North Beach, Arklow. The application submitted proposed the reconstruction of damaged areas of revetment and the raising of the revetment at some locations. I am informed that the OPW completed a review of the applications and determined, on the basis of the information supplied, that the applications could not be considered in their current form, as the majority of the proposed work is maintenance of the existing structure and that element of the work has not been costed separately. Where proposed works are identified, it is important that maintenance works are differentiated from capital works and that their respective benefit-cost analyses are made clear. The technical issues here are complex and merit some rigorous consideration, such that more sustainable solutions are identified and explored. Given the nature of the problem, the OPW notified Wicklow County Council that it may be more appropriate for the Council to seek funding for a more detailed study of the processes involved. This more detailed coastal erosion risk management study would be required to fully investigate, substantiate and demonstrate the merits of any measures being proposed. Such measures usually require the investment of substantial amounts of public funds. In order to ensure value for money, it is considered best practice to carry out a study in advance of undertaking any measures. In addition, a study will ensure that due consideration is given to the full range of management options. And it is a matter for the Council to progress this matter, and I am sure that the OPW will consider the proposal in full when it is received.
Thank you very much. 2 minutes supplementary text.
Thank you, Catherine. Well, Minister, clearly, and I listened with intent to your response, and clearly the local authority have identified this as a grave area of concern. Now, there was some limited flooding in the area during Storm Ophelia, but there are also commercial properties and residential properties in the area at risk from serious flooding. Now, there's 2 serious problems here. One is that the current structures there are being continuously undermined by the wave action and storms, etc. So, I'm a fair believer in a stitch in time saves 9. So unless immediate action is taken to carry out remedial work, repair work, we're going to be dealing with a much costly I suppose, flood protection scheme, not just to completely replace what is there, but to enhance the flood protection measures. So, whilst the Minister outlines the procedures that need to be carried out, I fear that is going to be a lengthy procedure. 3 applications have come in from the local authority, and at no point was it outlined that, the applications that you're putting in, you'd be better off going down a better route. You know, it's only after the third one was deemed to be unsuccessful. And I know the engineer now is dealing extensively with an official from the OPW. And the council are willing to go down that route because every other door has essentially been closed in their face. So this is a critical issue for the people of Wicklow and in particular Arklow. And it's not good enough just to go in to repair, you know, to increase the height of the existing flood protection measures that are there. We need the implementation of the second phase, and that is the critical bit, because, you know, a sticky plaster approach isn't going to work here. Putting it back to the way it was isn't going to work here. The second phase needs to be okay, it needs to be looked at again to see what is financially viable, what is cost, you know, the best in terms of the cost-benefit analysis and all of that. But essentially, a second phase does need to go out. What we need is a natural replenishment of the beach area in front of the flood protection measures that are there, and that will give the best form of natural defences when that beach area is replenished. So hopefully that work can be done as soon as possible in terms of the further analysis that's needed, and a new application will be into the department as quickly as possible. But we don't need that to gather dust on a shelf like all the other reports, all the other applications that have come in, particularly from the Arklow area, because I spoke in my opening couple of minutes about the Avoca River and the need for flood protection measures there. That's been going on for decades, and it's only now that there's a little bit of work going on there. So Arklow knows, unfortunately, only too well what it is to be at the end of a very, very lengthy list. So hopefully the Minister can give assurances to the people of Wicklow, in particular Arklow, that the government is serious and there will be funding coming out of the next stage of work that's carried out by the County Council, because we don't need a waste of resources, we don't need a waste of manpower putting in more applications that ultimately will be rejected and thrown back at the local authority.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, nowhere in the response does the Minister state that funding will not be available or whatever. The Minister is trying to be helpful in his reply that I've read out in terms of the best process to advance this important project, which you've obviously highlighted as being hugely important to the town of Arklow and to the greater area. I'm obviously not familiar with that area myself, but I do accept that serious damage has been done in the past and that there was plans in relation to a second phase. So I'll certainly speak to Minister Morden. You said you did speak to him yesterday, and he has stated that he will visit Arklow, and I'm sure he will bring the relevant people from the Office of Public Works and meet with the relevant individuals in Wicklow County Council to ensure that this project is progressed. Clearly, they stated that certain elements of the project were maintenance and should be costed separately to the capital works, and obviously everything that is done in terms of Office of Public Works spending on coastal and protective defences is based on cost-benefit analysis, and there's criteria that it has to go through in terms of ensuring that there's best value for money. I don't doubt from what you've said that this is hugely important, and I certainly hope that progress can be made, but I'll certainly speak to Minister Moore and to ask him to expedite that visit, if you like, and to continue the liaison through his offices with Wicklow County Council in relation to that project.